Listen, I have health anxiety sometimes, so when I go to a hospital, I want to make sure that the people that are there are taking care of me and not trying to murder me. Charles Cullen, aka the Angel of Death, was a critical care nurse who was confirmed to have killed about 40 people, but from what I understand, there could be hundreds, up to even 400 people that he may have killed in his 16 years as a nurse. He became an orphan at 17 years old, and by that time he had already attempted suicide 20 times. His first time ever attempting suicide was at 9 years old, drinking chemicals from a chemistry set. After growing into an adult, he ended up going to the Navy, but was shortly discharged due to another suicide attempt. From there, he entered nursing school in New Jersey in 1987. He had started working at his first hospital. He also got married to a lady called Adrienne Taub that same year, and later had 2 children. Most of Cullen's victims ranged from age 60 to 91, though he killed young people as well. His first confirmed murder was on June 11, 1988, at St. Barnabas Medical Center. His victim's name was John Yango Sr., and he was a former municipal court judge known for giving convicted criminals tough sentences. Cullen killed Yango by injecting the 17-year-old who was being treated for allergies with a lethal dose of insulin. And that was his preferred method. He began injecting insulin in patients' IV bags, causing them to overdose from insulin. One of these patients was actually an AIDS patient that he had killed. He remained at that specific hospital for 5 years, possibly killing many more without anybody's knowledge. The hospital opened up an investigation into contaminated IV bags. Charles got wind of that and put in his resignation. It was later determined that he was in fact responsible for the contaminated IV bags. In March of 1993, Charles broke into a coworker's house while she was asleep with her young son. He didn't wake them, but he started stalking women that he worked with after that. Before long, he was reported to the police as a stalker. He pled guilty to the trespassing and received about a year probation, and then the next day, he attempted suicide again. He took 2 months off and received treatment for depression, but he had attempted suicide 2 more times later that year. Regardless if he was suicidal, the killings didn't stop. A 91-year-old cancer patient reported that Charles, who wasn't her assigned nurse, came into her room and injected her with something. She ended up dying the next day. Her son swore that the death was definitely unnatural. The hospital obviously was concerned, so they put their staff through a polygraph test. They all passed, and the investigation stopped. In October of 2003, a patient at Somerset Hospital, which was his current hospital that he was at, died of low blood sugar. The hospital at that point alerted New Jersey State Police. The patient that died that day was Charles Cullen's final victim. The hospital at that point took steps to fire him. After an investigation, they determined that the only thing they really could fire him for was lying on his resume. So they did, in fact, fire him for that specific reason. At the same time that this was happening, one of Charles's co-workers, Amy Loungren, who was also his best friend, was growing concerned and suspicious of some things that were going on at the hospital. So she contacted police. At first, when the police started speaking with Amy, she was very kind of standoffish. She was agitated, defensive, upset that her friend had gotten fired. What she didn't know was that the police were about to show her all of the evidence that they had collected over Charles Cullen's years of being investigated for these crimes. They showed her the crazy medications that he was getting, how many times he was getting these medications. They were showing her the history of him looking through the patient records, his real employment history, which included so many hospitals. For example, these are just a few: Hunterdon Medical Center in Flemington, New Jersey, Morristown Memorial Medical Center, Liberty Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Allentown, Easton Hospital, Lehigh Valley Hospital, Luke's Medical Center, and Somerset Medical Center. Like, he has worked at all of these places as a nurse. The thing about it is that there was such a nursing shortage that he could literally just bounce to hospital and hospital. They would hire him. They needed him. The police did tell Amy that he was let go for similar situations at previous hospitals. So then the police convinced Amy to wear a wire and visit Charles after hours and have a discussion with him. Those conversations produced enough evidence for an arrest, and on December 12th, 2003, they arrested him at a restaurant. He was charged with 1 murder and 1 attempted murder, but he soon confessed to killing as many as 40 patients over his 16-year career as a nurse. Charles, when talking to the detectives, he had said that he wanted to stop nursing fully in 1993, just to stop everything. But he and his wife ended up getting a divorce, and he was put on court-ordered child support, so he had no choice but to work, to keep murdering people. In the divorce documents, Adrian claimed that Charles abused the family Yorkshire Terriers, allegedly beating the dogs and even zipping one of them in a bowling ball bag. Adrian said that she was awakened many nights by the screams of those dogs. How awful. As part of his plea agreement, Charles promised to cooperate with the authorities if they didn't seek the death penalty for his crimes, which is kind of ironic because he wanted to die, I would assume, because of the suicide attempts. A month later, he pleaded guilty to the murder of 3 more patients in New Jersey. In November of 2004, he pleaded guilty to killing 6 more patients and then trying to kill 3 others. In 2006, he was sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences. The trial was apparently very exciting. Charles often taunted the judge by saying things like, your honor, over and over. He had to be gagged with a ball and duct tape, apparently in court. And even after being gagged, he tried to repeat, your honor, like he was doing before, over and over. And because of that behavior, he received another 6 additional life sentences. While many of Charles's victims, they weren't suffering terminal illnesses or actually dying, he did claim to kill them out of mercy. He was doing mercy killings because he did not want them to die, even though they weren't suffering from any sort of ailments. He said that he gave them overdoses to prevent them from coding or going into any kind of cardiac arrest. He said that he couldn't bear to see that sort of thing happen to people, so he took it upon himself to prevent that from happening. But like I said, not all of his patients were terminal. Some of them were just going in for routine things like allergies. Instead of using popular painkillers and things that are heavily regulated that can be tracked, he decided to use things like a heart medication called dioxin and insulin. They had little use outside of the hospital setting and they were less noticeable. Despite his claims of wanting to save these people's suffering, he actually, by using these drugs, caused them to suffer very greatly. He did say that every murder that he committed was done on impulse, and that he felt that if he wasn't caught, he wouldn't be able to stop. In 2006, his attorney said that he wanted to atone for his sins by donating his kidney to another man who was the brother of an ex-girlfriend. In order to get the donation approved, Charles refused to cooperate with the investigation anymore or to appear at any legal hearings until his request was accepted. In August, he was permitted to proceed with the donation, which gave a kidney to this man. He saved his life, and Cullen said that he was just trying to help. Cullen's lawyer said that he knows that there is a tremendous amount of irony here. It is kind of crazy that simple things like insulin, if you just injected insulin into somebody's IV bag, even just a little bit, it would just fuck everything up. Does this story make you scared to go to the hospital? I've never been in the hospital, knock on wood. But I've never been, overnight in the hospital, so I don't know what it's like. And that is the story of Charles Cullen. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. You have no idea. If you want to support the channel in any way, please consider becoming a member. I greatly appreciate it. You can also give me a thanks at the little heart link below. I am Crystal. This is Getting Spooky. I'll see you guys later. Bye.